Del Norte County's public schools are scheduled to open on Monday, August 30th. On Tuesday, Del Norte Unified School District Superintendent Jeff Harris was a guest on KFUG's Community Service, hosted by Paul Kritz.
You know, as we're looking forward at having 3,700 students back in, almost 700 employees, maybe over 700 employees this year, because, you know, I don't know if you guys are aware, we got a little bit more money from the federal government, from the state government, really to meet the social emotional needs of students, to work on class sizes, to provide additional supports to families. And so we probably have more employees working for us now than we ever have before, all gearing up to seeing those students back in person on Monday. We're really excited about it. We've got a lot of counselors. We brought on, for the first time ever, we have a Hmong family engagement liaison. We have family engagement liaisons at all of our schools now. We have counselors and counseling techs at all of our schools now. We have again, more IAs, instructional assistants, working with our youngest students to really kind of, dig in, because unfortunately, I know we'll probably hit this later, we had a lot of learning loss. We had a lot of kids who have disengaged from a typical education over the past 18 months. And so our goal is really to ramp all of that back up, and that's what we're spending this money on.
So classes begin on Monday. What's it going to look like for a student coming back to school this year?
So on the broader front, I think it's going to look pretty normal, and normal if we anticipate masks, right? We'll talk about that in a minute, but I think what we're going to see is we're going to see families pull up. We're going to see students get out of a car, get out of a bus, walk into school, go to their classroom. I think a lot of our elementary schools are going to have what's called breakfast in the classroom, where instead of going to the gym, they'll go to their classroom and have breakfast. But then it's going to be a typical school day, in the class with their peers, in the class with the teacher, learning, engaging, working through some of the social emotional curricula that we have, those kinds of things, going out to breaks, going to lunch, after school programs will be fully active. So it's going to be, I'm going to say, cautiously optimistic, a normal year. So
you mentioned something about masks. What's that look like then?
Yeah, well, so I tell people when they hear us talk about some of these criteria and some of the things that are going on, it's kind of like the weather in Del Norte County. If you don't like it, wait 15 minutes.
Right.
So with masks, what we know today are that masks are going to be required of all adults and students anytime students are present. And then also, even when students are gone, in order to keep our classified certificated staff healthy, we're still going to require masks on campuses. And again, I think where a lot of our families, don't tend to kind of differentiate, that's at school sites. So that's what it's going to look and feel like at school sites. So they may see at a board meeting, which is not at a school site, it's at the district office, or they may come visit the district office, and vaccinated people are not required to wear masks, unvaccinated are. But at school sites, masks are going to be the norm for everybody.
Okay.
And the same thing with buses, Paul. So our school buses are considered public transportation, and masks are required at all times on public transportation for vaccinated and unvaccinated individuals. We are not requiring vaccinations until the state requires vaccinations. At this point, the state allows an individual employee to make the choice to either be vaccinated or to undergo weekly COVID testing, and we do a rapid antigen test. So that's the I think the tack that we're taking at this point. If the state were to mandate vaccines, then that is something that we'd have to implement, along with whatever goes along with that implementation, whether that's working with bargaining units, whether that is time frames that are involved, whatever that looks like, we would have to implement it. Now, as far as students go, again, we're hearing that there are people that are out there right now saying, the district's going to mandate students being vaccinated. We're not mandating students be vaccinated.
You can't even, correct? Is that true? I mean, do you even have the authority to do that? We may be able to, but that's not even a road we're going to go down. Right.
Not even a road we're going to go down. So the California Department of Public Health tells us what vaccines a child has to have in order to be enrolled in school.
Okay.
And we are required by law to enforce that. As a matter of fact, I mean, so we talk about sometimes the ridiculousness of the state and bureaucracies. A year and a half ago, when we went into full shutdown, I mean, no one was allowed to be physically on a school campus, right? We had new students that were enrolling, and CDPH would not allow us to enroll someone who was not fully vaccinated and even provide education with them learning from home. If they were to require a COVID vaccine, that would become part of that vaccine regimen. But again, we're not interested at all in forcing a student to get a vaccine. It's up to the state. That's not the role of a local district or a local school board.
I don't want you to have to try to foretell the future. I mean, but do you anticipate what sorts of directives might be coming if things, stay the same or get worse? The kinds of things that you might have to address, whether it's social distancing or altered school day or anything. Or do you have plans in place to sort of, we might have to go down this hallway here?
Well, I think the only two things that give me pause are if they were to implement another physical distancing in classrooms, simply because at that point we have to figure out how to keep students in.
Yeah, that's very simple math. Here's how much space we have and how many kids we have to get
exactly. And the other part of that math, really, we look at additive math right there, right? But from our perspective, thinking about the future, we also have to look at subtractive math. When I walk into a classroom, what has to go in order to fit a child if we have physical distancing? So we may have to get rid of bookshelves and extra desks and those kinds of things. Just simply because, a lot of our classrooms were built years ago, decades ago. In the case of Crescent Oak, almost a century ago.
Right.
So we have to go and we have to think about what that looks like and how many students can we have. And, one of the reasons that we couldn't do that last year, again, they kept changing things like distancing. It started out as 3, then it was 6, and it dropped to 4, then it went back to 6, then it went back to 3. So I'm going to pause there, or I'm going to continue there, but I'm going to come back to that really quickly. So that concerns me a little bit because that's a major physical shift of the space in order to accommodate students. The second piece is if by some reason, or for some reason, we have to go through the practice of closing down a school, right? Because of multiple outbreaks of COVID at a school where we've identified that the transmission is happening in a school.
Right.
But again, one of the things we're really going to be pushing this year is kind of an initiative, I guess, where we say, keep kids healthy, keep schools open. Because, again, I know we're going to have folks that choose to get vaccinated. We're going to even have folks that choose to go in for that third booster. We're going to have other people who say, I'm not getting a shot. We're going to have people who wear masks, people who say, I don't want to wear masks. As a community, it's our responsibility to keep our kids healthy, right? And if our kids stay healthy, our schools can stay open. If as a community we don't focus on students, if I don't have respect for a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old, a 12-year-old, and I'm not concerned with their safety, and they come in and they are sick and they infect other students, then our schools may have to close, and that's not something we as schools have control over.
Superintendent Harris responded to a question about what the community and community leaders can do in order to ensure that our kids can attend school and remain healthy.
Regardless of your political, personal, professional beliefs, whatever your, to use a nice German word, Weltanschauung, your worldview
nice German words.
Oh yeah, German always fits in around here.
German. But whatever that kind of worldview is, it really is about a child and helping to keep that child safe. So I would say if you're on the fence about a vaccine, I would encourage you to get it. I mean, what we're seeing at the hospital right now, most of the folks that are on ventilators, most of the folks in ICU are unvaccinated. If it comes down to a choice of wearing a mask into a local business or not, but there are kids walking around in there, please wear the mask. I mean, you may not want to, it may not be something you even agree with, but if it keeps one child from getting sick and it keeps us it keeps giving us the ability to keep schools open to engage kids, it's going to help all students. And so I would just encourage everybody to think about that, right? It's not about what I want and what I believe. As an individual living in this community, I have to think about too, when I walk in, what does it mean? My whole thing is I'm not gonna tell you what to do from my own bias, but we all have common sense, and we know commonsensically what we should be doing to support one another in this community. I've said it before. I said it even before all this stuff happened. If our community does one thing, it's we come together in times of crisis. And yet it seems like in this time of crisis, people have been divided almost more than ever. And our community needs to realize, or think about, I shouldn't say realize, but think about the fact that our future depends on these kids who have been denied access to some basic services now going on 2 years. And if we do want to continue to provide those, if we want to do it in a safe way, it's going to take all of us. It's going to take 28,000 people working together to make this happen.
Del Norte Unified School District Superintendent Jeff Harris. You can look for the full interview to be posted soon on KFUG's YouTube channel. For KFUG Community News, I'm Mike Thornton.